Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Political Vigilante. My name is Graham Elwood. This was submitted by Crafty Geek, a Patreon supporter. Thank you so much for supporting the show. This is one of the things you get to do at the $5 level. It's what their Crafty Geek is asking for is to sort of show the parallels between the 50s McCarthyism and the Russia now, and the reference point is the Oliver Stone's Untold History of the United States, which is on Netflix, and I highly recommend watching it. It really shows how we got here, and one of the things it talks about, if you go to season 1, episode 2. But overall, it shows how Russia became our enemy. It shows how the Soviet Union bore the brunt of World War II, and we don't talk about this in America because we're viewed as the big heroes of World War II, which we obviously did a lot to help win that war, but the Russians lost millions of people. Hitler was brutal with Russia. Brutal, because the war was on their soil. We sent a lot of men over there, and a lot of people didn't come back, but the war was not on our soil. It would be like if we were up on the Canadian border fighting, and lost 1 million people up there. So it really goes into, and then it showed how we could have kept Russia as an ally, but kind of intentionally forced them into being our enemy because we needed them for the Cold War. We needed them for the military-industrial complex. And that the Cold War helped the military-industrial complex really grow. It was the thing that Eisenhower warned about. Eisenhower warned us about the military-industrial complex. He coined the term, if I'm not mistaken. And one of the things that he submitted is there's a Gallup poll that Crafty Geek submitted that's in the show notes below about the presidential approval ratings. And Harry Truman had the lowest approval rating when he left office of 45.4%. It shows too, it goes into the Untold History of the United States, shows how one of the FDR, and I've talked about this before, going into the 1940 convention, the Democratic Convention, FDR was running for his 3rd term. He was the reason they made 2-term limits on presidents. He warned the Democratic Party about going. He goes, don't move to the center, don't move to the right. He said he was trying to get Henry Wallace in there, who was a progressive, right? I don't know if you'd call them corporate Democrats back then, but that's how we would identify them now. But anyway, the more business-minded Democrats they pushed for Truman. Truman pushed the war machine. Truman pushed dropping the bomb on Japan, and he pushed for the Korean War. And it's something that we need to be highly aware of, because as we're sitting here talking about going to war with Syria, again, 1 year later, we shot rockets at Syria a year ago, last April of 17. We shot rockets, and Brian Williams said, "Aren't these rockets beautiful?" And now we're back to Russia drawing a line in the sand. If we attack Russia, we're going to be, and we're like ramping up for war against Russia. And maybe we should get war against Russia because they rigged our election. And it's insane. And no one on the mainstream media except Tucker Carlson is saying this is nuts. I just watched a preview. Yesterday I was at the dealership getting my car. It's scheduled maintenance or whatever, and they just had the NBC National News, and they're like, when they do that thing, coming up on the news, we're going to talk about this and new reports from Trump and Mueller, and then is an attack are we going to go to war with Syria sooner rather than later? Like, it's not like what, there's not even a hint of why are we going to war. This is the NBC nightly news, right? The so-called liberal media. And the parallels here that Crafty Geek brings up are very, very relevant. Because the Russia narrative, these seeds were planted at the end of World War II, leading into the Cold War. And I highly recommend everybody watching this entire series because it opens, Oliver Stone does a great job of opening everyone's eyes up to what America really is. And when you look at these, you know, I'll read this. This is what Crafty Geek said. He goes, the clip that is in episode 2 that starts at 11 minutes, 44 seconds, going until 28 minutes. And there's also another good one, a shorter example, 21:22. But watch the whole series. The second episode focuses on the Soviet Russia thing, but everything in the untold history, it leads us up to where we are today. It shows you how what has gotten us into the 4 decades long corporate coup, but it was pushed. The American military has always been sort of at the behest of American business interests. It's that book that was written by that general who war is a racket. And everything is, the history of this shows you exactly why this Syria and this Russia thing is playing out. Russia, as we've talked about, Russia and China don't want to use the petrodollar anymore. They don't want to use American currency anymore. What? We can't let that happen, so we're going to try to go to war with them. It's insane. It's insane. And we're using Syria. Again, the same thing. A year ago, it didn't make sense a year ago. Assad was winning the war. Why would he use chemical weapons? So this McCarthyism 2.0 is really for the corporate state to push its agenda. And it's putting us all at risk. And I thank Crafty Geek for submitting this. And I want all of you to watch that series on Netflix if you can. If you don't have it, get it from a friend or something and watch the whole series because it's very informative. It's part of the education I would recommend. I'd watch that series. I would watch some of those, that documentary with Noam Chomsky that's on Netflix. I'd read Chris Hedges if you haven't already. Many already have. If you're new to the channel, those are the things I would recommend getting yourself educated with to see what's really going on, because the mainstream media, I mean, literally, Tommy Lahren, that crazy blonde right-wing chick, and Tucker Carlson are the two voices of reason. No one on CNN, no one on MSNBC, not Rachel Maddow, none of them. None of these big liberals are like, why are we going to war? Because the war machine pays them. The war machine doesn't pay me. You guys pay me. I mean, I guess the war machine sort of pays me in the sense that I get ad revenue from Google, but it's just because you guys watch ads, not because they directly pay me and say, Graham, you need to push the war agenda. And if they did, I would say no. So make sure you're subscribed, because they are unsubscribing people at an alarming rate. And thank you, Crafty Geek, for supporting the show and giving us this history lesson to show us why we're where we're at today. Everything's connected. I talk about that repeatedly on this show. And thank you guys so much for making Gotham great again.